Singapore has become one of the most desirable countries to move to for high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals to educate their kids and to store their wealth. Singapore is known to have one of the most free economies in the world, and it's also one of the safest countries in the world, which is why it is very appealing. However, navigating through obtaining residence, permanent residence, and citizenship has becoming increasingly complex, especially with the global investor visa being much more expensive now than it was. However, luckily, there are some other ways that you can obtain residence in Singapore, which are not that expensive. And this is exactly what we're going to be talking about here today. My name is Jelena, and here at Nomad Capitalist, we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs figure out their tax situation, optimize it, figure out their lifestyle needs, immigration needs, obtain a second passport, and overall go where they're treated best. Now, for years, the most famous program in Singapore in order to get a residence was the Singapore Global Investor Program. And previously, it was also aimed towards high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals, where you would have to invest 2.5 million Singaporean dollars minimum in order to get a residence permit. However, last year it went up to 10 million Singaporean dollars, which made it even less accessible and less attractive to many people. In addition to increased requirement for investing, they also increased the requirement for some business proof, for your education, for your experience, and so on. So besides the 10 million Singaporean dollars that you would have to put in a country, you would also have to satisfy a number of requirements in addition to that. However, if you're looking into getting a residence in Singapore, you don't want to, or you don't have that much money to put in Singapore, but you still want to have a foothold there, maybe live there with your family, and so on, then maybe you can consider something that's aimed towards foreign workers, which is called the Employment Pass, or EP. So if you're an individual, high net worth individual or professional, business professional who wants to move to Singapore under the Employment Pass, you would have to fulfill these following conditions in order to actually be eligible for the Employment Pass. First, you would have to incorporate a Singaporean company, then you would have to employ yourself, and then you would have to apply for the employment visa. Now, obviously, this can work also if you have a Singaporean company owned by somebody else that will employ you. It doesn't have to be yours, but you have to be a foreigner who is employed by a Singaporean company. So for many of our clients, that usually means establish your own company. It doesn't have to be the main operating company of your structure. It just has to do something, and it has to employ you in order for you to get the employment pass, and by extension, your family get a dependent pass based on that. One thing to consider is that all Singaporean companies must have a Singaporean director at all times. So while you're waiting for your employment pass, you would likely have to hire a nominee director or somebody else to act as your director in Singapore. And once you obtain the employment pass, that director can be you, and you don't have the need to pay somebody else anymore. Now, there is also a requirement for a minimum paid up capital, but that is something that is determined on a case-to-case basis. We help you do that. When we help you apply for the employment pass, there's no prescribed solution. There's no general amount that is required, but you will have to put some paid up investment capital. Generally, employment passes are received for 24 months and then they're renewable. However, when you're applying for the employment pass for the first time, it is very common that you get it only for 12 months and then you have to renew it. So the first thing that you're gonna do when you're starting your application for the employment pass is incorporate your company. Now, the first step to do that is choose a name and confirm whether it is available for usage. So you will choose 3 names and submit it for approval to the Singaporean authority. And then once you get the approval, you have your name is reserved for 60 days from that date. And it gives you time to finalize the incorporation. If you don't, then you have to apply for the approval again. Once you get the approval for the name, you will have to fill out many forms. In case of working with us, our team will help you fill those forms, so you will not have to do anything regarding that except sign a couple of papers. And the best part is that you don't even have to go to Singapore in order to incorporate the company. Now, once the company is incorporated, you will have to apply for your employment pass, and this comes in a form of employing yourself, but you also have to decide what your salary will be. You have to satisfy a minimum threshold for the salary in order to be eligible. Now, this salary threshold is usually determined based on your experience and your personal portfolio, but we usually recommend for it not to be lower than 8,500 Singaporean dollars per month for just one person. If you're bringing your family with you, then it is an additional 6,000 Singaporean dollars for each family member, unless you're bringing parents with you. So if you're bringing parents with you, then you have to add an additional 12,000 Singaporean dollars for each parent. So as you can see, it does have certain income thresholds. You still have to pay yourself a certain amount of money. And because Singapore is known for one of the most expensive places to live in the world, it is obvious why the requirements for minimum salary are this much. Now, after 6 months to 1 year of holding this employment pass, you can try and apply for a permanent residence. However, in this case, you have to prove that your center of life is in Singapore, that you're contributing to the economy. Besides just the physical presence requirement, there are many other requirements that you need to satisfy in order to get approved for a permanent residence or somewhere down the line for citizenship. So you actually have to show that you are committed to the country, that you have roots in the country, that you are investing in the country, you're purchasing a property or similar. So there are no clear guidelines. However, from practice, what we have seen is that people on the employment pass usually takes them 2 to 3 years to get a permanent residence, and citizenship even a longer period of time in some cases. However, officially, it is said that you can apply for citizenship after 2 years of holding the permanent residence. Now, obviously, even with Singapore being one of the best places to live in the world, safest places, best economies, there are certain pros and cons. So first of all, you're getting one of the best financial hubs in Asia. You're being able to live in one of the most developed cities in Asia with a very safe environment, with a great economy. You're getting access to their banking system as a resident. You have the opportunity to choose whatever bank you want to use, invest through that bank. So that's a huge perk as well. It is also one of the tax-friendly countries. It is surprisingly a territorial tax country, which means that they don't tax income that's not deemed Singaporean sourced. And they generally don't have capital gains tax, which can also be very beneficial, especially for investors. However, on the other hand, it is one of the most expensive places to live in the world. Lifestyle costs are pretty high. Also, as mentioned, permanent residence and citizenships are not guaranteed, and the pathway to those is not really straightforward. In addition to that, if you decide to go the route of citizenship, you should be aware that there's a mandatory military service for males. And also, not just for citizens, but for second-generation permanent residents, there's also a requirement for mandatory military service, which may not be as exciting for people with young kids, especially young sons. However, overall, Singapore can serve as, this employment pass can serve as a great way that you can establish yourself in one of the biggest Asian hubs, establish a foothold there, live there for full-time or part-time, or live there for a couple of years and then leave and optimize your tax situation. However, Singapore can sometimes be complex to navigate through, and it can be complex to complete all the required steps to get a residence permit, which is why if this is something you're interested in, you should definitely subscribe to our channel, hear more about it, and apply to work with us so our team of experts can help you achieve your goals.